Hello and welcome, my digital type Leafs. Well, what do you think would happen if we would give Digimon typical Pokemon types? This will be my take on the Adventure crew, that being the Digimon of the main characters, as well as the main villains of the show. So let's go and start with the classical Agumon. For Agumon itself, yeah, that's definitely fire. I see how one could argue about Dragon as well, maybe, but I don't feel Dragon really. There are only a few dinosaur Pokemon we have, and quite honestly, I think only one of them is actually Dragon type, Tyrantrum. And the others are like, we have some ice types, rock types because a lot of them are fossils, so no, Dragon and dinosaurs aren't that connected in Pokemon at all, but yeah, Agumon shoots a little flame, so I guess that's enough for me, though, well, Dragon types probably can learn fire type attacks as well, but it's my take. If you think differently, well, go for it. Agumon, of course, turns into Greymon, and I think Greymon just stays fire type because it just makes sense for Greymon to stay that type. It's basically grown up Agumon and doesn't change much in the fundamental value of things, you know what I mean? So yeah. Also, while we could maybe add Dragon type, yeah, the next one it turns into, that has a specific type that just needs to be there. And that would be Metal Greymon. It has metal in its name. How can I not make Metal Greymon is Steel type? Really, I mean, what else? A Fire Steel type. That is what Metal Greymon is. Though, I guess you could argue it losing the Fire type would make sense. Because if you look at Metal Greymon and its attacks, there isn't much fire going on anymore. But, well, given what happens next, I rather keep the Fire type and add Steel. Now for War Greymon, we have several choices. First off, keep it Fire Steel. And quite honestly, that is what I will be going with. Because it still has that Terra Destroy attack, which is a huge ball of heat. And I think that does help making it Fire type. And I kinda don't wanna change the Fire type. Gives it a bit of a starter charm and everything. But, well, it's also clad in metal completely. Maybe not completely, like the feet are naked, for all you fetishes out there. And, what can I say? That just needs to be Steel type. Now, the arguments that can be made. It is a Dragon Man Digimon, so Dragon type I could definitely see and probably exchange fire, but I don't know. I'm not that comfortable with that. Simply because it gets a dragon weakness due to that. And I don't want it to have that dragon weakness simply because there are the Dramon Slayers he has. And those are specifically super effective against dragon type Pokemon. Or, well, Dramon Digimon, I guess. Dramon Digimon would probably just be dragon type. And the way I would handle that is given is Steel type attack, the Dramon Slayer, but that has the special effect of being super effective against Dragon types. So you don't get that Dragon type weakness, but you get something that is stab, but also super effective against dragons, making this thing the Dragon Killer. And I think that works perfectly for it. And the other thing you could argue is fighting type because, you know, it's fighting for justice and everything. And yeah, it's a bit loose because it's a weaponized fighter. But if we go with that, a lot of Digimon would turn out to be fighting type, honestly. And I don't know, we shouldn't do that. But I could see an argument there. But I will go with Steel and Fire type. Yeah. Next on, first villain. I want to mix them up a bit. Okay, the first real villain, like upper class main villain, so no Ogremon here, would be Devimon. As a side note, Ogremon probably would be some kind of a fighting dog type. Maybe poison. But yeah, what do we do with Devimon? I thought about it, and I just want to give him the dark type. Why only dark type? Several reasons. First off, yeah, flying would work. It has wings, but not everything in Pokemon with wings is flying type. And we have flying types that don't have wings. But it's just, I don't know. It would just feel just because-ish, you know? Pure Dark, though, is simple. And it's the first villain they have on top of that, so simple is good. It has a clear weakness of the fighting type, for example. And, well, the fairy type as well. And thus, yeah, with how... Oh wait, that would be spoiler for later in the video. Never mind that. So, yeah. No, pure dark type just fits it very well. It's a very demon thing, and we don't really have demon Pokemon. Not really. But I assume they would be dark types. I guess that's fair. Now Gabumon, and again we keep it simple, it will be an ice type. Yeah, you might be asking, isn't it using a fire attack? But that is more like an icy fire? And it also really depends on which type of media you actually look at. But given how the whole line in the end is associated with ice, Gabumon gets ice. Simple as that. And then we have Garurumon. Yeah, it's too cool not to be ice, I guess. No, ice just fits like... Most of the champion levels will be the same as the rookie levels because it just makes sense. The champion or adult level, coming from the rookie or child level, is the grown-up version. That's how Digimon works. They grow up into that, and then they get like battle refined into perfect / ultimate levels, you know? So, yeah. Yeah, ice as well. Now then we have Wargarurumon, and a lot of people might say, dark type obviously, because moon and night. Yeah, it is associated with the moon and night and everything, but that doesn't make a dark type. A dark type, coming from Japanese, literally means evil type, is cunning, a trickster, uses ways to fight that aren't fair and everything. And I don't think just because Wargarurumon is a punk, that applies. Rather, the way it fights, using a lot of kicks and punches, this would be an ice fighting type. Definitely. And then, after that, we get into a little bit of a tiny little problem. Now we have Metal Garurumon, and like I said with Metal Greymon, if it has metal in the name, how can I not give it the steel type? That would mean it loses the fighting type though, because ice definitely has to be there. Look at the attack, I mean, Kokuto's breath, Kokuto's being like the ice hell basically. It just needs to be ice type. And then it's fully covered in armor, giving it the steel type. And I would definitely say we should do that, yeah. The thing is that we would have a fire steel and an ice steel type as the main two things. Which is either a cool thing because that's something they share and then they have an opposite type on top of that. Or you could say it's stupid because why do they share a type? They should be different, so yeah. Can work either way depending on what you prefer and what your explanation is, I guess. I think staying fighting type would also kinda work because all that weaponry, like weapon users being fighting types, though that goes more for like swords and stuff in Pokemon. I feel more comfortable with the steel type. That's just how it is, and yeah. let's go with Ice Steel. Now the next big villain they have defeated would be... No, not Etamon. I wanna include Datamon. Yeah, Datamon wasn't as huge and I could see it like a sub-villain that is a rival to Etamon. They could have pulled that off much better. But I think what could have been and what is, well, it's an electric steel type. It's easy as that. Like, it's a computer thingy and computers work via electricity and they do have plastics and metals to work. Plastic isn't a thing in Pokemon apparently. And like the supercomputer Pokemon Metagross is a steel type, so yeah, steel electric would just work. Now, my buddy Piomon. And I would show my little Piomon plush right here if I finally would find it. It's in one of the boxes from the move, which almost has been a year, but things need work here. I do digress. Piomon, okay, you could argue fire. Sure, it has that magical fire attack. Sure. I wouldn't say that it is fire though. I would rather have it be simply a single mono type flying type. Yes, they cannot fly very well, but we have Doduo who cannot fly at all and is a flying type, so it's already better at flying as that thing. And Doduo can learn fly. Yeah, the fire type attack, you know, magical fire to me actually seems more like a fairy type attack. Quite honestly. But, well, we don't talk about attacks specifically here. They are just something we use as a hint on the type it could have. But yeah, pure flying type. Flying type? What's a flying type? Is that a mix of a flying and a fighting type? Oh well. It is. Because keeping it pure gives us way to this. Birdramon getting the fire type. And I do not like it all that much because we already have Agumon who is heavy on the fire type, but Birdramon is literally a bird on fire. It's like Lavados. Just not really, because they aren't really similar at all. But it is a bird on fire. I cannot make it not fire type. If a Pokemon or Digimon is engulfed completely in fire, it needs to be fire type. And it's a bird, flying type. Well, though, this will be a big up and down with this Digimon, believe me. So, Garudamon. You know, people usually say Garudamon fits Aquilamon much better as the ultimate level. And I absolutely agree, because Garudamon does nothing with fire at all anymore. That thing, and like, I love Garudamon, but the relation to Birdramon, it almost feels like Sora's Digimon partner isn't evolving in the most natural way, like Agumon to Greymon or Gabumon to Garurumon is the intended evolution. Yeah, Digimon can go outside of their intended evolution path. Sure. But usually the ones used in the anime follow the intended path. But Piomon to Birdramon, well, that makes sense. Birdramon to Garudamon doesn't seem like the intended path. And thus losing the fire, to me it seems like a fighting type. Like, it's huge, muscular. It's not really using punches, but like the attack it uses, which is called something, the name escapes me right now, is like an aura thing. And aura stuff is fighting type in Pokemon. So, flying fighting works very well here. Just after it evolving, changing everything again. Yeah, Phoenixmon. Or in the original, Hoomon. Ho is actually a Pokemon, which is flying fire. And I disagree with that. I will make Hoomon flying fairy. Simply because I just don't want to return back to the fire type after having that break with Garudamon. That would be weird. And on top of that, and I will one day make a video on this, The Ho is always seen as the Japanese phoenix. It doesn't really have that many similarities with the phoenix. The Ho is more like a bird of light, and not like with healing powers and everything. Like the phoenix is a bird on fire, but the Ho isn't really. So yeah, and light and fairy being connected, and yes, it has that sacred fire attack thingy. But you know, also Ho might have been a fairy type if it was created nowadays. Who knows? I don't know. But for Phoenixmon, I think flying fairy works the best. Feel free to disagree on that. Now we will talk about puppets. So, we have arrived at Itamon. And yeah, when it comes to puppets, Pokemon doesn't give us many examples. And they are all over the place. We have a ghost type one, we have a fighting type one. Neither of which feels like Itamon. Now, Itamon can use the dark network, so a dark type could be working. But Itamon itself doesn't really look like a dark type to me. So, could you please shut up? So, what can you do? Well, Itamon is all about sound. And sound is kind of a subtype of the normal type. Which would make Itamon a normal type. And I do feel comfortable with that, even though it seems very underwhelming for the next big villain in the show to just be a normal type after we had a dark type. But oh well, what you gotta do about that? It's just fitting, you know, sound normal, that all goes well together. So, Itamon, sing your song! Or not. If I remember, I will put it in the background or something, or I don't know. Moving on. And while we are at the normal type, why not go with Patamon? Patamon would be a perfect flying type? No, honestly, yes, it shoots air, so giving it a lot of flying type attacks would make sense, especially those air ones. But I feel Patamon is a normal type. Because Patamon is this little thing that is, I don't know, a flying sausage. But then it turns into something more special. And kinda like Eevee, starting from a normal type would be such an interesting idea here. So I go with normal there. Also, we don't get many chances for normal type in Digimon, I would say. But when it evolves, or digivolves, then it will lose the normal type completely, turning into the fairy type Angemon. And that is what I mentioned with Devimon, because they couldn't defeat Devimon until Patamon evolved. And suddenly they have a force that is going against this dark type with Angemon. Who dies? Okay, well, that wouldn't happen in Pokemon, but yeah, pure fairy. Definitely pure fairy. That would make so much sense for Angemon, being an angelic being and light and fairy basically being the same thing in Pokemon. It just works. Now, Magna Angemon, or Holy Angemon, yeah, I mean, it gets a sword. So, fairy fighting, right? I don't see anything else you could do with that. Quite honestly. And then we have Seraphimon. Yeah, well, Seraphimon, huh? You don't quite seem like a fighter anymore like Magna Angemon did. But I don't want to go back to pure fairy as well, because losing a type, like monotype, then dual type, and then going back to monotype, that would just be weird. So I guess we keep the fighting type around, because yeah, I mean, it's fully armored, maybe fairy steel type? But I don't know, yeah, actually no, now that I think about it, fairy steel works actually much better. It being fully armored. And that also helps us with a certain other Digimon. So, yeah, we go with fairy steel. And now we have Vamdemon, or Myotismon, or Myotismon, or whatever you want to call it in the English version. Stick with Demon, like Vampire Demon, come on! That's cool! And Dark type is very much obvious for this thing, like, can you be darker than that thing? I would argue from all the Digimon, it is the most evilest in like the whole franchise. The whole anime franchise, I would say. Not the most evil villain necessarily, but oh well. Though, we won't have it pure dark type. Because it can manipulate minds, and we have seen that. So, while it definitely will have a lot of poisonous attacks, I think Dark Psychic works very, very much better for that. It will be a Dark Psychic type. And yeah, it cannot be anything else. Like, you can argue Poison to me, sure, but no, I think Dark Psychic is the perfect match here. Feel free to disagree, but then I will disagree with you and your mom. So, why not stay angelic then? Because, well, Tailmon or Gatomon had a huge role in the Myotismon arc. And yeah, I'm gonna include Salamon here as well. Which simply would be a normal type. I mean, sure, it does have a holy ring, so make it a normal type that has some kind of ability, making it half of a fairy type or just giving it a lot of fairy type attacks. But I feel a normal type would be the best here. Then we have Tailmon / Gatomon, which definitely, absolutely needs to stay a normal type as well. It's just like, it's a cat. That's the epitome of being a normal type in Pokemon. Just being a cat. An evil little... Wait, cats are very evil. Okay, Tailmon, Gatomon will be a dark type. Just kidding. Then though, normal, like with Patamon, turns into fairy. Pure fairy in Angewomon's case. Simply because, I mean... Yeah, it shoots arrows. Okay, we could argue about fighting type due to that. It's like an aura thingy, but those are magical light arrows, so I guess pure fairy fits it. And well, there's one more. Or two. As an honorable mention, I will mention Ophanimon would be a fairy fighting type because it wields a lance. But in the anime, we have never really seen Angewomon turn into Ophanimon. It always had Magnadramon as its evolution, being again an outlier like Sora's partner. And Magnadramon, I mean fairy dragon. It's a fairy dragon. It is a pink dragon, a pink fluffy dragon evolving from an angel which I gave the fairy type. It cannot be anything else, is what I'm saying here. And then Myotismon or Vamdemon goes crazy and turns into Venom Vamdemon or Venom Myotismon. It has venom in its name. Like poison, obviously. And I'd say due to this evolution kinda being out of desperation and rage and everything, the psychic type will be lost. It seems like when it evolves into Venom Vamdemon, it loses the mind and control it had and would just become like, I want more power and sacrifice my intelligence for it. So yeah, for sure, this will be not psychic type anymore, so dark poison it is. Let's go to Tentomon. And yeah, we can make this very quick because Tentomon, as well as Kabuterimon, and of course Mega Kabuterimon and Hercules Kabuterimon, they are all bug electric. It's really like ingrained, they are bugs and they use electricity. That's their whole thing. End of story. Now, after the whole Myotismon thing, the Masters of Darkness arrive. And I'm gonna start with the easiest one. Machine Dramon or Mugen Dramon. I will keep Dark type away from these four because we had a lot of Dark type villains so far already, and the Dark Masters all being Dark type. But yeah, Steel Dragon for this thing is just a given. So, moving on! Palmon! You get to be a Grass type! And I would say that's it. You could argue Poison because it uses that poisonous ivy thing, but it has never really been shown to poison anybody, really, so yeah. Pure Grass fits it very well. Then we have Pokemon! Grass fighting. I mean, it's a boxing cactus. That definitely would be grass fighting, come on! Lilymon is literally a plant fairy. So grass fairy type is very much the thing you gotta do here. And then I struggle a bit with the next one. So Rosemon or Rosémon, yeah, you could still argue it is a planty fairy, so grass fairy type, keeping that wood fit. But, you know, imagine this. Lilymon is like, okay, it was nice being a fairy, but I wanna again pack some punch. I'm going back to fairy fighting. Now, why would Rosemon be fighting type? Whip, Rapier, peek peek. You know, it has that weaponry going on, and fighting is somewhere in its DNA, thanks to Togemon. Honestly, I think it fits it better than the fairy type, the fighting type. Because this femme fatale, I would almost go and say fairy fighting, but it's literally a humanoid rose, so yeah, it needs to be a grass type. We gotta do something with the abilities to make it sub-fairy type or something. Something like maybe an ability that makes fairy type stab attacks or something, you know, something like that. I guess. But I really wanna have grass fighting here. It just fits in very well. And then we have the next master of darkness. Let's go with Puppetmon or Pinocchimon. And, well, the grass type is a given. That's a wooden puppet. It's made out of wood. Definitely grass type. But what else could there be if we don't want to use dark type? Well, it does have some machinery parts. But using steel type again? I don't feel like that. But what about if we see it that way? In the show, it used like psychic manipulation towards Takeru or TK. And you could also say a puppet is controlled by something. What if Puppetmon isn't the actual Digimon, but the strings are or something? And that way we would have a grass psychic type. Yeah, no, that's a bit out there, I agree, like, maybe not really psychic. But what should we do then? How about this puppet is actually controlled by a ghost? I'm gonna argue grass ghost type for Puppetmon. Yeah. Simply because I do not want to use steel again. And psychic I also have plans for, so let's be honest. Grass pure would probably fit. I just don't want one of them to be a pure type, you know. So tell me in the comments if you have any better ideas. Only one Digidestined left. But several villains left. Well, what can you do about that? But here we have Joe's partner, Gomamon. Water type. I mean, duh. And then we have Ikakumon. I could absolutely see an argument about this being water ice. I will still go with pure water though because of what happens next. And then after that, even though I just did something similar to Palmon, but forget about that. So yeah, pure water still. Now, Zudomon uses a hammer and electric powers. Water electric just has to be it. You could argue water steel due to the hammer, but I don't know. No, it's like, it's only a tool. It's not part of its body, so yeah, no. Water electric works. And then we have Vikemon, which is a lot more icy than it is electric. So yeah, now we get it to water ice. A very standard type combination, but you could say Joe is a very standard guy. A reliable one, at least. Now, let's finish up the remaining 2 Dark Masters, as well as the final villain of Adventure. And no, I will not go into the movies or anything, they will get their separate videos. So, first off, Metal Seadramon. Here I have a problem. I did not wanna reuse types for this quartet. But we have a metal dragon and a metal sea serpent. Like, they both need to be steel. So Metal Seadramon needs to be steel water. Literally, my hands are tied behind my back. You see that? Here? See that? Wait, no, wait, you can't see that. No matter. Yeah, like, you could argue dragon, of course, because it's a sea dragon, but like, sea serpent, sea dragon, you can, but to not have 2 steel dragon types, at least differentiate the dragon type for the water type here, so we have a water and steel type. I cannot not reuse the steel type here, sadly. And then we have Piedmon, or Piedmon, or whatever, Paimon, sometimes even. Definitely a psychic type because it is playing mind tricks and using mysterious things to confuse you and be elegant about it. And for a secondary type, I would say fairy. Yeah. I don't know why. I cannot explain it to you, but it seems like a fairy type to me. Maybe because like a Pierrot would be a fairy type? Like Mr. Mime? The pantomime being a fairy type? I think that would be a good explanation. So, yeah, psychic fairy. I feel very comfortable with that. And lastly, there is Apocalimon. Or Apocarimon, sometimes called. And, you know, this thing is all the evil combined. It has to be another dark type. It absolutely has to be another dark type. The secondary type, though, that's a bit more complicated. But I would say that we make this Digimon have a changeable secondary type. Because it can use the moves of so many other Digimon. So why not give it a secondary type depending on the move it uses? It uses a poison type move. Until it uses a move of a different type, it will be poison type. Dark poison. And everything. That will be, the ability will be that. I would also say that it is a double dark type in a way. Because with that ability, if it uses a dark type move, it is a dark type already, it kinda becomes dark times 2. So it takes 4 times damage from like fighting or fairy type moves. But also if it hits a dark type weakness, it also hits it with a 4 times weakness instead of only a 2 times weakness. Like the dark type counting twice in this. And I think that ability would probably be a bit broken, but in terms of this being Digimon, a thing like this being broken sounds, yeah, that sounds right. What can I say? Digimon is much more crazy than Pokemon. And now I gave every most main Digimon, you could say, of Digimon Adventure Pokemon types. Tell me what you think. Would you change some of these types? Like and subscribe. Check out Amiibo Talk. It comes out every Wednesday, and we'll see each other in the next video. Bye!